Hello everyone, welcome back. So we're another week down and it's been a bit of an interesting week, mainly to do with correspondence and old footage and bits and pieces like that. I've had a lot of questions over the last week or so about FTR3 and what comes next. A few people have commented that the project seems to have stalled a little bit, and that is true. In reality, I'm at the point now where I've done everything I can to this car without getting external help. And the problem with the external help is it costs a heck of a lot of money. So if you've been following the journey from the beginning, you'll know with the Super Cheap Auto Falcon, we did a similar restoration. We cut off the front and the back, converted it from a BA back to an AU, but the inside of the Super Cheap Auto Falcon wasn't touched, which made the job a lot easier. FTR3, when it was converted to a BA ride car, it was never intended to be put back to an AU Falcon. So everything was done properly. So it was welded, all the panels and fitments and everything was done properly. It wasn't a part-time thing, or a short-term thing, I should say. And when you look at FTR3 and you look at the cage, the inside of the car was completely changed. All the bar work, everything at the back, it had a back seat put in it, everything's been changed. So as a bit of an idea, anything with orange tape on it is not original. Anything with green tape is. That's how much work we've got ahead of us. And to give you an idea, the corresponding, drawings, that's the cage of FTR3 when it was approved by CAMS in 2000. That's what it's got to be put back to. So all the orange has got to be reinstalled. Now, obviously all this work can be done. That's not a problem. It's just the cost of it. Now, because it's a pretty low budget operation here and all the work I do myself, and effectively my time's worth nothing. So when I've got to start to get some external help like the cage and bits and pieces, it starts costing a lot of money really quickly. Now, to give you an idea, to do just the cage on FTR3 and paint the inside of the car, which we didn't have to do with the Super Cheap Auto Falcon, that's actually going to cost more than what we spent on the entire restoration of the Super Cheap Auto Falcon. So straight away, we're going to be easily double the investment into FTR3 than what we were on car 31. So that's a little bit of an issue, as far as the only way I can fund it is through my normal channels, my 9-to-5 job. This isn't my full-time job. So that takes time to, save up enough to do. Obviously, I've factored it in for a while, but I've spent everything I could so far to get FTR3 to where it is today. Since I put this information out earlier in the week, I've been inundated with people that want to play a part and get involved in FTR3's restoration, whether that be through donating old bits and pieces they have from the car, paint, panel, labour, some financial. A lot of people want to get involved with the one message that we want FTR3 back on the track and we want to see it back in action as soon as possible. And that's just not through the racing circles. There's a lot of people from the Gran Turismo circles as well that want to see FTR3 back as they remember it from the game all those years ago. So I'm just in the process now of working out what that might look like. It's all new to me, if I'm honest, and it doesn't sit overly comfortable with me, taking donations and bits and pieces off people unless I can give something in return. So I'm just working out what that might look like. And if people want to get involved, I don't want to certainly knock that back. And I don't want to, curb people's enthusiasm for this car. I just need to try and do it in a way that it's safe, it's effective, and everyone can get something in return for their generosity. So I'm just about to begin removing the rear firewall from FTR3, and as you can see, it's all riveted on. That all has to come out because the rear suspension points or shock points, although they're original, all the bars were dead straight that went from there to the center roll hoop. So all that's got to come out, and you can see where it's been grafted on when it was converted to a ride car. And for obvious reasons, I've been avoiding doing this job because there's 1,000 rivets, it's urethaned on, it's going to be a pain in the backside. Now, I was really hoping to save that given that it was original, but I got some photos sent to me during the week. And just before we roll into this overlay of footage that's really interesting, there was a photo of FTR3 and the boot of the car. Now, we've covered off the rear rail. If we come around this way, the car was badly damaged in Canberra in 2002, and we've covered off the kink that's in the rear rail that's still there today, which we're going to leave. It tells the story. These were more detailed photos from inside the boot taken at the same time, and you can see just behind the fuel pumps and everything, there's a massive kink in the end of the floor, or the front of the floor, up against the rear of the firewall in the boot. And you can see there's also a kink in the firewall itself. Now, if we go and have a look inside the boot of FTR3 today, you can see there's a heap of hammer marks where it's all been hammered back out. So they have tried to repair that. They've squared off the firewall and they have replaced it. Now, the reason I say they've replaced it is you can see there's rivet holes, there's more rivet holes there than what was there in that photo. And the originals are still there today. You can see the urethane hanging out of them. So it's been replaced. So we'll get it out the best we can and try and not damage it. But if we have to get it remade, it's probably not going to be the end of the world, because it definitely wasn't in the car in the year 2000, which we're aiming for as far as the period correct. So not the end of the world, but we'll get it out. We'll try and save it. But it's really cool just to see these little notes on what was fixed and what wasn't, even though it was 25 years ago. Now, during the week, I've shared some footage from the GMC 400 in Canberra in 2001, when both the Super Cheap Auto Falcon and FTR3 entered the same event, and they were both played a part in the top 15 shootout. You'll see in this footage here, I've overlaid Steve Ellery's lap in this car and Glenn Seton's in FTR3. And what's really interesting is you can see the brake ducts on the Super Cheap Auto Falcon were completely closed off. So they were aiming to get as much front tyre temperature, and that would come through heat soak from the brakes, where Glenn Seton ran the more, I guess, open system and tried to do it mechanically through, steering inputs and bits and pieces. So it's really interesting. You can see Steve Ellery made a massive mistake at the start of the lap, ran really wide, but just watching him claw back time as the lap went on, Glenn Seton just pipped him, not by much, and they qualified 3rd and 4th on the grid. But it's just a really cool piece to see how hard Steve Ellery drove the car and clawed back bits and pieces, and it looked like he actually got in front at one point, but ultimately Glenn Seton had the last say in FTR3. So I'll share this with you tonight. I'll push on here and start drilling out some rivets and bits and pieces, and we'll have more for you soon. And once again, I really appreciate your generosity. I appreciate your support. We'll keep in touch in regard to that, and hopefully we can set something up that you can play a part in FTR3 returning to the track. Thanks again. I hope you enjoy.
Time of Marcus Ambrose. This is the new car from Bathurst last year. Glenn had a car that was working very well yesterday, 3rd in qualifying with a 1:43.84, which is fractionally quicker than the time that Marcus just did a moment ago. But can Glenn produce on this lap? Notice the brake lights coming on. He uses a little bit of left foot brake as he makes a run through turn 2. This car looked very good yesterday. Through here, there's a huge...
He's really attacking, isn't he? The way he glides it across those curves, 2 wheels in the air as he came into the GMC flip-flop.
Well, he's had a couple of results get through his fingers, so the hunger factor's gone up a notch here. Eastern Creek, we all know, was hard on him with the way in which the safety car trapped him before his compulsory tyre stop. See the blockage in the radiator there? That's been done deliberately to try and keep the water temperature at the prescribed number. 0.18 slower at the split down there. So remember, Marcus Ambrose is the target time. And then up in Darwin, he got tangled up in that turn 1 drama. Marcus Ambrose, John Bowen himself in the Saturday race, and yet in one of the races there, I can't remember exactly which one, he actually recorded the quickest lap of the race. So the car's got the potential. It's hungry to make amends right now.
Amazing when you talk about that hunger, Neil. The last time Glenn Seton won a round of the Shell Championship Series was at Eastern Creek back in 1997. He's gone 41 championship rounds without victory. So it's been a long time since he's tasted that winner's champagne. Will it happen this weekend in the GMC 400? Down through the final chicane as he points it up toward the Ford sweeper. Tidy lap so far for Glenn Seton. He's out-qualified his teammate Stephen Richards 3 out of 4 times this year. Can he do it again? A little bit taily as he comes on toward the pit straight, and he goes to second fastest, Glenn Seton. 0.17 of 1 second behind Marcus Ambrose.
It was a very good lap. Glenn's always got great footwork. You listen to his downshifts coming down into turn 13 there. Nice, neat little blips.